You know what's truly magnetic? A man who doesn't chase approval. A man who doesn't need to be liked to feel valuable. You see, most men out here are exhausting themselves trying to impress women, bending over backwards, agreeing with everything, shrinking themselves just to be accepted. But here's the truth no one is saying out loud. Women do not respect a man who has no backbone. It's not cruelty, it's biology. Respect is not given to the man who sacrifices his identity to make others comfortable. Respect is earned by the man who holds his frame no matter who's watching. Let me ask you this. How many times have you compromised something important to you just to please someone else? How often have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? That inner frustration you feel after those moments isn't just guilt. It's your soul protesting. Because every time you betray your own standards to accommodate someone else, a part of you withers. And the worst part? The very people you're trying to please feel that weakness, and they can't respect it. Especially women. A man with standards is different. He's not arrogant. He's not aggressive. He's calm, composed, and unshakable. He knows what he wants, what he values, and what he will not tolerate, and he's willing to walk away from anything that threatens that. That level of self-respect is rare, and it's powerful, and women, whether they admit it or not, are drawn to it. You want to know why? Because it signals leadership. It tells her that if you can't be moved by external pressure, you won't be easily manipulated, and you won't need validation to stand tall. That kind of man feels safe. Not safe in a boring, predictable way, but safe in a grounded, trustworthy way. A man who isn't trying to please everyone can actually lead, and women are wired to respect leaders, not followers. There's a difference between being kind and being compliant. Kindness is strength. It's when you choose compassion without compromising your values. But compliance, that's fear. That's trying to keep the peace at the cost of your dignity. A man who lives by his code doesn't fear conflict. He knows not everyone will like him, and that's okay. Because his worth isn't on trial. He's already decided who he is. And that decision, that clarity, is what separates him from the rest. When a woman meets a man who has standards, she knows she can't just walk all over him. She knows she has to level up. And contrary to what some men fear, women don't hate that pressure, they respect it. Because when a man demands a certain level of behavior, he invites her to show up as her best self too. It becomes a relationship of mutual growth, not power games. But the moment you start tolerating things that make you uncomfortable just to keep her around, you've already lost her respect. You've told her without saying a word, you are more valuable than me, and the second she senses that imbalance, she loses interest. Not because she's ungrateful, but because deep down she knows a man who doesn't value himself can't truly value her either. So don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to walk away from disrespect, silence, manipulation, or inconsistency. Don't be afraid to disappoint someone if it means staying true to who you are. Because when you uphold your standards, you teach the world how to treat you. And that's the kind of man women not only notice, but deeply respect. That's the kind of man she doesn't forget. Let me tell you something most people won't dare to say. Being a man isn't about showing dominance. It's about showing direction. You can raise your voice, flex your muscles, throw your weight around all you want. But if you're not leading with purpose, no one's truly following you. Not really. Because women don't respect ego. They respect vision. They respect a man who knows where he's going and walks like he's already halfway there. Think about it. The men who try the hardest to control people are usually the ones most out of control internally. They try to micromanage everything and everyone because they lack direction. So they compensate with aggression, with demands, with fear tactics. But here's the truth. Real leadership isn't loud. It doesn't need a spotlight. It speaks for itself, and it speaks through consistency, not control. A man with purpose walks into a room and shifts the energy without saying a word. Why? Because he's anchored. He's not chasing clout or approval. He's guided by something deeper. Goals, principles, a mission. And when a woman sees that kind of focus, she doesn't just notice it, she respects it. Because she knows he's not easily swayed. He's not lost in distraction. He's building something real. And if she wants to be a part of it, she knows she has to rise to that level too. That's what sets him apart from the rest. You don't need to be rich, famous, or the loudest guy in the room to lead. Leadership is about alignment. It's about making decisions that are consistent with your vision. It's about not compromising your long-term for short-term gratification. That kind of discipline isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. It tells the world that you're not living on autopilot. You're in control of your destiny, and that's what makes you stand out. See, when you lead with ego, your energy says, look at me. But when you lead with purpose, your energy says, follow me if you're ready. And that changes everything. Ego needs constant feeding. Purpose feeds itself. Ego makes demands, purpose makes decisions. And women can tell the difference instantly. What a lot of men don't understand is that being admired isn't about impressing women, it's about inspiring them. When you're a man on a mission, you naturally inspire respect. You don't have to ask for it, you don't have to negotiate for it. It arrives unspoken because your life becomes proof of your values. A woman watching you doesn't need you to explain yourself, your discipline speaks for you. Your habits tell your story. And it's not just about being career-driven or chasing status, it's about living with meaning. Even if your purpose is building a quiet life, creating stability, protecting your peace, that intention matters. Because when your actions are tied to a greater why, people around you feel that, especially women. And when they see that you're moving with direction, they realize they can't just distract you with drama, manipulation, or games. You don't have time for it. You're building something, and that alone demands respect. Let go of the idea that masculinity is about domination. It's not. It's about foundation. It's about creating stability in chaos, not becoming chaos yourself. It's about leading from within, not trying to impress from the outside. And it's about being the kind of man who doesn't need to be seen because his presence is already felt. That's the man women don't just admire, they follow. Let me ask you something. When everything starts falling apart, who do you become? Because that moment right there, the chaos, the pressure, the emotional storm, that's when a man's true character is revealed. And I'll tell you this, the man who can stay calm when everyone else is losing their mind is the one who earns a woman's deepest respect. Not the loudest man in the room, not the most reactive, but the one who keeps his cool, who doesn't let emotion take the wheel. There's a quiet power in stillness. In a world where most people are quick to react, quick to argue, quick to defend, the man who can sit back, observe, and respond instead of react becomes unforgettable. He doesn't rush to prove a point. He doesn't let insecurity control his tone. He doesn't allow disrespect to pull him out of his character. And that level of emotional discipline, that's rare. That's what makes him different. Women notice it immediately, even if they can't put it into words. They feel it. Because calmness feels like safety, not just physical safety, but emotional safety. She knows that if something goes wrong, you won't make it worse with panic or ego. You'll assess, you'll adjust, you'll lead, and in her eyes, that's strength. You see, most men think showing emotion equals vulnerability, but it's not about showing emotion, it's about controlling it. Emotional control doesn't mean you're cold or detached, it means you've mastered yourself. You can feel deeply and still remain centered. That's not suppression, that's leadership. And real masculinity shows itself most clearly under pressure. Now think about how many men crumble at the first sign of challenge. They yell, they lash out, they throw things, storm out, or shut down completely. Why? Because they've never developed the skill of restraint. They've confused emotional outbursts with being real or authentic. But truthfully, they're just giving their power away. The man who commands respect isn't the one who tries to dominate the room with volume. It's the man who doesn't flinch when tension rises. It's the man who listens before speaking, thinks before acting, and walks away when needed, not to avoid conflict, but because he refuses to let chaos define him. That kind of emotional intelligence is what separates boys from men. And yes, women test men emotionally, not always consciously, but they do. It's not to be cruel, it's to see where your center lies. Can she poke at you emotionally and still find you grounded? Or will you unravel the moment she withdraws, gets distant, or pushes back? A woman might not respect a man who explodes, but she will always respect a man who stands firm in who he is, no matter how she shifts. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you become unshakable. You let her feel your peace instead of your panic. You let her see your stability instead of your storm. And when she realizes you won't be manipulated by anger, guilt, or silence, she knows she's in the presence of a man who leads himself first, and that is a man she'll never try to control. So if you want to be respected, learn how to hold yourself when it's hard. Learn how to pause instead of react, how to breathe through discomfort, how to respond with intention. Because in those moments, you're not just showing her who you are, you're showing her what she can trust. That's the kind of man she respects. Have you ever noticed how the men who say the least often hold the most power in a woman's mind? It's not the one constantly trying to impress her, explain himself, or overshare every thought. It's the man who gives just enough to keep her curious, but not so much that he becomes predictable. There's something incredibly compelling about a man who is emotionally mysterious yet deeply present when he chooses to show up. That combination doesn't just catch a woman's attention, it earns her respect. Women are naturally intuitive. They can read energy, tone, timing. So when a man reveals himself slowly, in layers, it invites her into something deeper. Not a game, not manipulation, but a journey. A woman doesn't respect a man who lays his entire soul out within the first few days because it feels like he's seeking connection out of emptiness. But when a man reveals pieces of himself intentionally with clarity and restraint, it tells her something powerful. He values his emotional space, and not just anyone gets access to it. This kind of man doesn't hide. He simply doesn't overshare. He's selective, not secretive. He speaks with purpose, not pressure. And when he talks, there's weight in his words because silence came before them. A woman respects that silence because it tells her he's not ruled by impulse. He's grounded, thoughtful, and in control of his story. The problem is too many men are either emotionally absent or overly exposed. One disappears completely, leaving her in confusion. The other floods her with everything at once, leaving her overwhelmed. But the man she respects most lives in the balance. He's emotionally available, yes, but not emotionally needy. He's present, but he has a life beyond her. He listens more than he speaks, and when he does speak, he says something that matters. And let me be clear. Emotional mystery is not about being aloof or distant. That's not attractive, that's avoidance. It's about not making yourself too available too soon. It's about giving her the gift of discovery. Let her earn your story. Let her lean in a little. Let her feel the joy of unveiling who you are, bit by bit, through experience, not explanation. That sense of mystery keeps things alive. It creates a dynamic where she wants to understand you, not just consume you. But when you combine that mystery with intentional presence, when you show up fully in the moments that count, that's when everything changes. When you're with her, be with her. Put the phone down. Look her in the eyes. Listen not just to her words, but to what she's not saying. That kind of presence is rare, and women feel it immediately. It shows her you're not just physically there. You're emotionally grounded. The respect comes when she realizes you're not performing. You're not rushing. You're not trying to win her approval. You're simply being. And because you're secure in yourself, you don't need to force connection. You allow it to unfold naturally. You're not afraid of silence. You're not afraid of pauses. You're not afraid of letting the moment breathe. And when she sees that, she understands that your attention is a privilege, not a guarantee. That your story is a layered experience, not a sales pitch. That your presence is powerful, not because it's loud, but because it's intentional. So be that man, the one who is emotionally mysterious, not to manipulate, but to protect what's sacred. Be the man who listens more than he speaks, but when he speaks, you feel every word. Be the man who shows up fully, but never gives himself away too easily. That's the man she respects without needing to be convinced. Here's something most men are too afraid to do: walk away when they're being disrespected. And yet that single decision could be the most powerful move you ever make in a woman's eyes. Not because you're trying to prove anything, not because you're playing a game, but because the moment you choose to walk away from someone who treats you poorly, you show the world and her, that your self-respect is non-negotiable. You see, too many men stay in situations where they're not valued. They chase after attention that's not reciprocated. They cling to women who breadcrumb them with just enough affection to keep them hooked, but never enough to truly feel secure. Why? Because they're scared, scared of being alone, scared of missing out, scared of not finding someone better. But that fear is exactly what strips away their power and eventually their dignity. What they don't realize is that every time they accept disrespect, they teach her how to treat them. And women learn quickly. If she sees that you tolerate being ignored, being talked down to, being manipulated, she will lose respect, not because she's cruel, but because she cannot respect a man who doesn't respect himself. That's just the truth. But the man who can walk away without creating drama, without throwing insults, without begging for closure, that man is different. He sends a message with his silence that no argument could ever communicate. He says, I value myself too much to remain where I'm not valued. And that energy, that quiet confidence, that's what sticks with her. Because deep down, women want to feel like the man they're with could walk away if the standard isn't met, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares about himself first. That doesn't make you cold or unloving, it makes you strong. It means you're not seeking her to complete you, you're inviting her to join you. And if she doesn't come correct, you're not afraid to continue alone. Let me be clear, walking away isn't a threat, it's a boundary. You don't announce it, you don't scream it, you don't use it to manipulate. You do it when your soul knows it's time. When the disrespect is no longer just occasional, but a pattern. When your value is consistently questioned or dismissed. When your peace is being taxed more than the relationship is pouring into you. And when you do it with grace, do it with peace, not to make her feel guilty, but to reclaim your own sense of worth. Because the truth is, if a woman doesn't respect you, when you're in front of her, she will start to see your absence with different eyes. Sometimes it's not your presence that reminds her of your value, it's your silence. And no, not every woman will come running back. But that's not the point. The point is that you didn't lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who didn't value you. You chose self-worth over emotional survival. You chose growth over familiarity. And that kind of decision, that kind of strength, builds a foundation that no woman can ignore. So be the man who knows when to speak up, but also when to walk away. Be the man who doesn't stay somewhere just because he's afraid of starting over. Be the man who chooses respect even when it's uncomfortable, because the moment you prove that you don't need her validation, she'll see you in a whole new light. That's the man she respects, even in your absence. There's something undeniably attractive about a man who's on a mission, not just in his career, but in his life. A man who is constantly evolving, constantly learning, constantly becoming a better version of himself. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but because he refuses to settle. That man, the one who invests in himself relentlessly, is the one women respect the most. Because here's the truth, you can't lead, protect, or inspire anyone if you're stagnant. A man who has stopped growing becomes dull, predictable, easy to overlook. But a man who is always building something, whether it's his body, his mind, his craft, or his vision, he stays sharp, he stays interesting, he stays valuable. A woman doesn't just fall in love with who you are, she falls in love with the man you're becoming. And if you've stopped becoming, if you've settled into comfort, if your best days are behind you in your mind, then you're already losing ground, because respect doesn't come from what you had or what you used to be. It comes from who you're becoming every single day. This kind of man doesn't wait for the world to hand him opportunities. He creates them. He doesn't make excuses for where he is. He takes responsibility and makes moves. He reads, he works out, he learns skills. He sets goals. He challenges himself in silence when no one is watching. And that quiet self-discipline speaks louder than any words ever could. Women sense that. Even before they see the results, they feel the energy, they feel the direction. And that kind of momentum is attractive, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually, because it says, I'm not done yet. I'm still building. That energy makes a woman want to be a part of the journey, not because she needs to guide you, but because she wants to grow beside you. Too many men stop evolving once they get comfortable, once they get the girl, once they get the job. They think they've arrived, but nothing kills respect faster than complacency. Comfort is not the enemy, but lack of growth is. When a man stops striving, he starts shrinking. His presence dulls, his energy drops, and the respect he once commanded begins to fade. But when you invest in yourself, you're showing the world how serious you are about your potential. You're saying, I value who I am, but I know I can be more. And that mindset, that hunger, that's what inspires respect, not just from women, but from everyone around you. Because people can feel when a man has vision. They can feel when he walks with purpose, speaks with substance, and moves with discipline. Doesn't mean you have to be rich or famous. It means you have to be intentional. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be progressing every day, bit by bit, because it's not just about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process. A man who invests in himself doesn't need to seek validation. His confidence comes from the work he puts in behind the scenes. It's in the early mornings, the hard conversations, the books read, the gym sessions, the time spent alone improving his mindset. And that kind of quiet grind earns a kind of respect no performance ever will. So choose to be that man, the one who never stops evolving, the one who keeps showing up for himself even when no one's clapping. Because when a woman sees that your growth is self-driven, that your discipline is rooted in self-love, she doesn't just admire you, she respects you. And that respect, it lasts longer than charm.